I had really bad gut health for about a decade of my life. It was such bad and painful bloating that I would have to lay on my belly after every single time I ate. And in fact, one time it was so bad, I brought myself to the emergency room because I thought like my stomach was rupturing or something. But over the last 7 years, I've successfully really healed my gut and I don't have any of those issues anymore. And looking back, I've been able to pinpoint the things that I did that really absolutely destroyed my gut health in the first place. So today I'm sharing the 5 things that absolutely destroyed my gut health, so hopefully you can avoid these in the future. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Element. More on them in a bit. Okay, the first really big thing was poor posture, which is really ironic because I actually have really great posture when I'm standing, but it's when I'm sitting. And I think that's the issue for a lot of people, which my poor posture really kicked in when I went to college and I was studying a lot. I was taking anywhere between 18 to 24 units a semester, which means I spent a lot of time sitting, and then I would also spend like 4 to 6 hours studying every single day after that. And then of course, after college, I then started to work and sit, and it just continued the cycle. And I have a really bad habit of sitting like where my leg is pulled up like this, and I'll just like, I don't know if you can really see, but I like go in this weird little crouchy position, and then I'll also just sit like hunched over. My chiropractor dad hates the way I sit when I'm working, which obviously when you're sitting in that crouched over position, it causes a lot of compression of the organs, which not only was affecting my GI tract, but it would really impact my breathing too. It would crush my lungs a bit and also really tighten my diaphragm, so it'd be hard to take deep breaths, which also would impact my GI tract as well. So when my stomach was really compressed from the multiple hours of sitting in that really crunched position, it would make it so that food couldn't really pass through as easily as it should. So it would get stuck, it would get fermented, it would cause the bloating and the buildup and all of that stuff that is not fun to experience. So I have to be honest, this is one that I have to actively work on. I got a sit stand desk so that I can stand more often than I am sitting, but even when I sit, I try to make sure that I'm sitting on like one of those little exercise balls, so it forces me to not sit in that position where my knee is up. And it does make a very big difference, not just for my gut health, but also for my breathing too. Okay, the second thing that absolutely destroyed my gut health was my daily sugar intake. Now, I always classified myself as healthier. I would always choose healthier sugar options. So it'd be like healthy muffins or a lot of dried fruit with nuts. I'd have like a couple dates a day. I'd often find daily little desserts at our local food co-op that would be made from like dates or honey or maple syrup. And then of course, protein bars and chocolate covered raisins. And there's been some research showing that when we eat more sugar, it actually promotes an imbalance of our gut microbiome. And this imbalance can cause a lot of issues like increased gut permeability, which is also known as leaky gut, and constant low grade inflammation, which I was definitely experiencing at the time. Plus, sugar is also very highly fermentable, which means that the bacteria that's within our gut can really break it down quickly and form a lot of gas within the GI tract. That's what's going to cause a lot of that bloating that can be quite painful at times. Now, I've completely cut out certain things like protein bars. If you've been following my channel for a while, that you know that I do not touch protein bars, purely because there's just so much sugar in them for the amount of protein in it. It doesn't really make sense. And I also don't really eat dried fruit anymore, or not very often. But another thing to note is that these food items are also more snacky items. So I've really cut down on how much I'm snacking too. I pretty much only just eat 3 meals a day and get those gaps between meals, which turns on something called the migrating motor complex, which helps to flush out that bad bacteria and left behind food that can cause bloating. So inherently, by getting rid of a lot of these like more sugary items that wouldn't be really part of a meal anyway, they're more of snacky food items, it gets rid of that snacking behavior and allows me to get that gut healing between meals. Which, speaking of reducing sugar, that's why I love today's sponsor, Element. Element is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting, low carb eating, and whole food eating in mind. It actually contains the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help balance out electrolyte levels, all without having any sugar. So completely in line with my goals now too. I've been using Element for about 3 years now, and I really notice a difference when I miss it. When I'm not properly hydrated with Element, I notice that I feel a lot more tired, a lot more lethargic, especially around like 3 p.m. or so. And I tend to get a little bit headachy or even just a bit of brain fog. Electrolytes are just so important for helping our body send signals from the brain to the rest of the body. It's involved in literally everything. So having a good balance of electrolytes is crucial. vegetable, and Element makes it so easy to do because it tastes so great. I love their grapefruit salt, but they also right now have their seasonal chocolate medley. Each box comes with 10 chocolate raspberry, 10 chocolate chai, and 10 chocolate mint. It's really great served with hot water for cold days, and it's an excellent zero sugar replacement for other chocolatey drinks. It's a perfect new cozy ritual to get electrolytes in. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serve packets free with any Element order. It's a really great way to test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinkelement.com/autumn. It's only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link will also be in the description down below. Okay, the third really big thing that absolutely destroyed my gut was my habit of having chips and salsa. Growing up in Southern California, I feel like that's one of our major comfort food items is chips and salsa. Or for myself at the time, chocolate covered raisins, but that's a different story. I would have it a little bit in high school, but it wasn't really until I went to college and, chips and salsa is so cheap that I would eat a lot of it. It's hyper palatable. It's really easy to munch on and finish an entire bag without realizing what you're doing. It also obviously promotes snacking and not just eating true meals. So at the time, I was not getting that benefit of not eating between meals and turning on that gut cleaning process. I was having corn chips, so corn chips are going to be made from that processed corn flour. And processed flours can reduce the gut microbiome diversity. Those processed flours, like the corn flour, are also going to be lower in fiber, so it's not going to feed the good bacteria either. And when you're eating a lot of chips and salsa, it's going to displace those foods that actually help to support gut health, like those that are rich in high quality fibers like artichoke or cacao. Now, I'm not saying that I never eat chips and salsa. Like definitely, if I'm going to a Mexican restaurant, I will have a little bit of chips and salsa and guacamole, but it's definitely not something that I buy bags of and keep at the house anymore, because for me, that is definitely one of those trigger food items. If it is in there and if I have chips, I have salsa, I will eat the entire bag, and that is not supportive of my gut health goals. Okay, the fourth thing that absolutely destroyed my gut was eating a mostly plant-based diet, especially a lot of raw veggies. When I look back, probably the worst that my gut health was during my sophomore year of college. That's when I brought myself to the emergency room because I thought that my gut was going to explode. And back then I was what I would have considered really, really healthy. I was eating a lot of whole food ingredients, and I was even training for a triathlon at the time. So I was exercising and I was active and I was outside a lot, but I was eating mostly plant-based and a lot of raw veggies. So my breakfast would typically consist of something like a grapefruit, some other fruits, maybe a coconut yogurt, and then a lot of nuts and seeds and dried fruit. I would then usually work out, and then I would have a snack of some sort. That would be a plant-based pre-made protein drink, and then probably some more nuts and seeds. Lunch would almost always be this massive salad that would have a ton of raw veggies, and then these sprouted mung beans that I used to get. And then I would have another snack because with this style of eating, just always hungry. Back then it was a rice cake with I think peanut butter or almond butter, and then a big slathering of this whipped honey. Or I would go by our local food co-op and get this plant-based tuna salad. I think it was made from tempeh, but I'm not sure. And then a few chocolate haystacks, which is essentially just coconut flakes, finely shredded coconut flakes that then have melted dark chocolate on top and makes these little mounds. Dinner was usually some type of roasted veggies, probably a homemade lentil soup, maybe another salad, and then maybe my homemade black bean burgers. And then dessert would be a couple of dates, because again, I was always hungry when I was eating in this way. I was eating so much food, but I was always hungry. And that's because it was really low protein. Protein helps to make you feel satisfied and helps prevent a lot of that snacking that I was experiencing. I was also eating a lot of sugar type of ingredients like the dates or just other fruit items. It was very high volume, but didn't have protein to help make me feel satisfied. So even though I was eating a lot, I was always hungry. And because I was eating so often and those foods were really high in fiber C ingredients, my gut was constantly working. I never got gut rest unless I was sleeping. What people don't realize is that raw veggies does take a lot of effort for the body to break down. It's one of the hardest things for our bodies to break down. So it can be a big stressor on the GI tract to eat a lot of raw veggies, so you're not getting as much nutrient value out of that food for how much work you're putting into actually getting it out. Cooking, on the other hand, helps to act as a form of pre-digestion, helps to break down some of those fibers, so it's so much easier for the gut to actually break down and absorb those nutrients. There is some benefit to having some raw veggies and of course some raw fruit, but definitely from my experience, having a ton of raw veggies just absolutely destroyed my gut. I was constantly bloated and, like I mentioned, sent myself to the hospital. And as a side note, I would have every single day one of those pre-made, ready to drink plant-based protein drinks. And I've just seen a lot of the plant-based protein powders powders are really tough on the GI tract because they do tend to be made from like a pea protein, which can be really hard for a lot of people to break down. When I switched from that to a 100% whey protein isolate, which is what we use for our protein powder, never had any issues. So now I still obviously eat plenty of veggies. I just make sure to get a balance of cooked veggies as well as some raw. And I eat a lot more protein so I don't have to eat as frequently. So my gut actually gets some rest. Okay, and the fifth thing that absolutely destroyed my gut was anxiety and poor sleep. My anxiety was also really bad around the same time from when I was like 16 to 24. Looking back, the reason why I think my anxiety was so bad is because I had that poor blood sugar control. I was always riding that blood sugar roller coaster, which blood sugar crashes can cause that cortisol spike in feelings of anxiety. But I also ate a lot less animal products, and I believe that I was really micronutrient poor. There is a lot of research showing that those who eat more meat tend to have less issues with anxiety and depression, and there's speculation that it comes down to the availability of these micronutrients that are super important for the brain. So all this increased anxiety also made it hard to sleep, which then further made the anxiety worse. And what both of these have in common is that it can raise the stress hormone cortisol. And when cortisol is high, it can shut down or shut off that gut cleaning process called the migrating motor complex, which when the migrating motor complex is shut off, it disrupts the gut cleaning process and can lead to a lot of those poor gut health outcomes. So when I finally addressed my anxiety and sleep with a bunch of different tools, like actually eating more red meat, eating more dairy, walking outside more, balancing my exercise routine, and not watching TV before bed, all of that led to a lot less anxiety, which then meant a lot less stress on my gut too, which I really can't stress enough the crazy benefits of just eating more animal products had for my body, ranging from getting more protein, helping with my body composition, helping to reduce sugar cravings, and of course, helping to reduce my anxiety levels. So if you want to check out all the actual science-backed research on this topic of eating more meat, I really recommend you check out this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.